Battery Bill. Battery Bill. For cameras, computers, cars, or scooters. For trucks, boats, jet skis, remotes. Battery Bill. Battery Bill.
All right, how's it going, everybody? We welcome you to another edition of Hawaii Football Now. It's episode 56 here on HFN. Big mahalo to Spectrum Mobile, Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union, and Battery Bill for helping sponsor the pod. Jordan Helle, Hunter Hughes back with you. Our guy, Jaron Kawashigawa, on the controls. As always, producing this not yet award-winning podcast. We want to remind everybody that Hawaii Football Now is brought to you by Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union. Originally opened in 1936 as a credit union for educators, Hawaii USA has inspired a culture of giving that is rooted in education and has since become Hawaii's largest credit union and expanded to other areas of community need that impact financial health, including healthcare, housing, and hunger. To learn more, please visit hawaiiusafcu.com. All right, diving into the opening drive, we record this on Wednesday, the 21st at 7 a.m. Hawaii time, set to release this tomorrow. Of course, as usual, our Thursday drop date, Thursday, September 22nd, getting ready for the road trip to New Mexico State coming up this Saturday, and the plane ride to Las Cruces. For our opening drive segment, we got to wish our guy, Hunter Hughes, a little happy belated birthday. Had the big B day this past Sunday. We saw him on Saturday. I got to admit, I had no idea. I don't know if Jaron did when we saw each other at the UH game. As Hawaii picked up the first win of the Chang Era against Duquesne. But happy belated birthday, my man.
Thank you so much. It's always nice to get our first win under our belt in connection with my birthday. So thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
A nice little birthday present there for our guy, Hunter.
I didn't get the water jugs dumped on me quite like Timmy Chang did, but that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, you avoided that. The Spectrum TV sideline guy, Scott Robbs, did not. He got the pounded. Full brunt of the Gatorade bath. Of course, Hunter handling the sideline duties for our ESPN Honolulu game broadcast with John and Mark Veneri on the call. All right, game time here on episode 56. We mentioned it's win number 1 of 2022, win number 1 in the head coaching career of Coach Timmy Chang. It wasn't pretty. But to get win number 1, it has to feel good, right? It takes some of the pressure off. There's no longer the cloud of, look, man, when's that first win going to come, right? The longer you get into the season, the more you got to talk about it, the more it becomes just this unseen pressure, I think. And look, it was against an FCS opponent. It was a game that Hawaii won by 10 points against the Duquesne team. That's decent and it's a quality program. But, at the end of the day, Hunter, they'll take it.
Oh, yeah. Any way you can eke out a win to get some sort of momentum headed in the right direction, I think we're going to take that. And Jordan, I don't know about you, but if we were playing fantasy football, I would be starting Hawaii's defense and special teams with that game against Duquesne, man, because that was pretty much the lone highlight for us.
Yeah, turnovers, special teams, game-changing plays, right? A blocked punt, nearly a second blocked punt, a huge kickoff return from Jalen Purdue that went nearly 60 yards, set up a short field. And if you're playing fantasy football,
pick six,
not to get too negative, a pick six, sorry, yeah, I almost forgot about Panay Pavihi's pick six. He had a sack or a couple tackles for loss, I should say, in the game as well. If you had Malik Houseman, you're probably doing pretty well in your fantasy league as well. He had a couple of picks. Conversely, if you had Hawaii's offense in your fantasy league, it might not be as rosy a picture.
No.
Unless you maybe had Deidre Parson, who had a couple of touchdowns, not a ton of yards, but very productive down inside the red zone. Let's go over some of the numbers here. Again, 24-14 the final. Hawaii winning this one by 10. Trailed 3-0 early, but responded right away. Big kickoff return and then a touchdown. Answered on the very next possession, took the lead for good with 4:20 left in the first quarter, played from ahead, led 14-6 at halftime by as much as 24-6 before Duquesne punched in a late touchdown, got the 2-point conversion, got the onside kick as well, but a Malik Houseman interception in the end zone late in that game basically sealed it, Hawaii running out the clock from there on out. Looking at the team totals, Offensive production, Duquesne 364 yards, fairly productive, moved the ball at times, but Hawaii's turnovers, I think, really played a big factor in that. Overall, I thought the defense has made some significant strides every single week throughout the season. Offensively, Hawaii, 184 yards, total offense, 184 yards. Passing, Duquesne threw it for 230, ran it for 134. Hawaii rushed for 91 yards, a couple of short fields factoring into that. They threw for 93 yards, Hunter. 93 yards passing total. The whole game, 93 yards. Couldn't quite get to the 100-yard mark. Duquesne had 24 first downs, Hawaii 13 first downs in a 4-quarter game. UH had the one interception, Duquesne 3 interceptions in that one. Some of the team numbers there, as Hunter pointed out, the special teams had the block punt, the big kickoff return. They did have a couple of miscues, a couple of roughing the punter penalties following the block punt. The first of the 2 roughing the punters nearly resulted in another blocked punt. The third one wasn't quite that close. So you got to cut out some of those mistakes. But overall, I think a very net positive for this special teams unit. Kind of nice to see them being game changers once again in this program. But kind of overall, your impressions, Hunter, of how this one unfolded. They hadn't played with the lead for much of the season so far, right? It's been a whole lot of playing from behind. So they did have the advantage. They did have the luxury of sort of playing with a lead for most of this game. They were able to sort of methodically grind this one out. Did take advantage of 2 short fields for their 2 touchdowns offensively. Defense contributes with a touchdown. You had a special teams block punts. All 3 phases kind of factoring in here. But your general thoughts on win number 1?
Yeah, we've covered it well, I think, already, that the point is that we won the game, which I'm stoked. We're 1-3. All right. And if we can get another one here this next week against New Mexico State, I mean, I feel like we've got the only momentum that we can almost count on for this season heading into conference play after that. However, with this game, it certainly raises some eyebrows, Jordan. The fact that we only put up 184 offensive yards. I mean, if you do the math right there, that's less than 50 a quarter. That is not okay. that is very far from okay. If you look at the stats, I mean, Duquesne should have beat us, man. If you take away the blocked punt and Panay Pavi'i's pick 6, they probably do win this game. And across the board, it felt like whenever I was, on the sideline, we were bigger. We should have been more talented, certainly better coached. And so eyebrows are definitely being raised right now, kind of with the production that we're seeing from this team. But again, I'm sure we'll get into this later on as well. What have we been encouraging people with is that this is a rebuild year. This is 53 new man roster. The majority of our skilled guys left this past year in transfer portal. It's a lemon situation with what University of Hawaii football is now in the off season. This coaching staff, this team, the way they're handling themselves in the community, it's been fantastic. TC Ching Complex is absolutely popping on Saturdays. We just have to worry about getting better as a football team. That's really the last thing that we got to worry about right now.
Yeah, I'm with you, right? It's a step in the right direction overall, right? A win is a win. And look, winning is hard. Winning is hard at any level, especially at the Division I level. Look, you'd love for it to have been a 35-point romp where they click on all cylinders. But look, it's a process, right? It is a process. Are there things to be legitimately concerned about? Yeah, I think that's fair to point out. And we'll get into some of those things here coming up. But the fact that, hey, look, they're down their top 2 wideouts with Jonah Pinoque's injury. That doesn't help. Zion Bowen's already out. Defensively, they have been, really giving guys opportunities. And I think we've seen some guys take advantage of that. And we've seen some improvements. And we'll get into kind of all of this here in just a second. Let's start with the defense, because I think that was obviously the bright side of this game. And the offense will probably warrant a little more discussion with the way things are going right now. But you've seen guys step up. I thought the back end, the defensive secondary played pretty well. We've seen some guys step up. I thought the defensive front also has made some strides. We've seen some guys in there, right? Ezra Malo, I think, has been playing significant snaps and contributing significantly. You got guys like Kobe Wyatt, who came into this program as a tight end, right? The transfer from Georgia, making plays on that defensive line. I thought Tufanga and Pavihi were where we thought they were kind of be in terms of production, right? Tufanga 8 tackles, 3 solo, Pavihi 4 tackles, a sack, 50-yard pick 6. Like he was all over the place. And then this like rotating wave of defensive backs, if you will, right? Kalana McCullough, who continues to get more playing time, 7 tackles, 4 of them solo. Verdell Edwards, 7 tackles, 5 solo. Malik Hausman, 3 pass breakups, 2 picks, huge picks that were both, in their end zone, basically to stop drives deep in territory. Hugh Nelson, Noah Kamana, 6 tackles each. I thought Meki Pei played well. Peter Manuma showed a lot in coverage. And what he was able to do, he's a guy that can play up near the line of scrimmage. He can drop back. I mean, these are a ton of guys in that defensive backfield. A lot of local boys, a lot of D1 Power 5 transfers, and guys like Edwards and Hausman and Hugh Nelson, and then obviously McCullough and Pei as well. But I think we have seen guys on the defensive side of the football, as this team had 5 tackles for loss, 1 sack. Les Mentala, I thought, was really good again. Take advantage of opportunities. We've seen, I think, Coach Yoro and that defensive staff make some adjustments, get a few more of these guys, sort of the hybrid guys like McCullough, like Manuma, get them on the field. Just get playmakers out there, right? Put Hausman in positions where he can go make plays. Pavihi and Tufanga kind of feeding off of that. They gave up some yards, but like that's sort of how college football is these days, right? You're going to give up some yards. Can you get stops? Can you force field goal attempts? Can you come up with turnovers? They did that. They did that in this game. And I think we saw a little bit of that in the Western Kentucky game as well, at least in the first half. We saw some of that in the second half against Michigan. You have seen improvements, at least in my eyes, on that side of the football. I think they're getting better. They're getting more comfortable in what they want to do out there. They've got an idea of how they want to attack. But what has been your sort of assessment of the defensive side of the ball here 4 weeks in?
They're a tough and resilient group. Duquesne was very well coached. It felt like at any snap of the football, they could move the ball down the field without much resistance. And the fact that our defense was still able to keep them from getting in the end zone was a terrific accomplishment. Obviously, they scored a couple times, but you were there, Jordan. It felt like Duquesne held the ball twice to our once in terms of offensive possessions. It's reflective of how many yards that they were able to put up as well. And the fact that our defense was able to cause turnovers, get to the quarterback in the backfield, and make their presence known out there was a tremendous accomplishment when they had almost no help from the offense on the other side of the football. So it speaks a lot to the resilience of these guys. We mentioned it last week, Coach Yoro's ability to make adjustments. I'm thankful that we have this defense right now because we don't seem to know what to do on the offensive side. So hate to be a downer, but they are the highlight of our team right now.
Yeah, defense and special teams. I'm glad you brought up the time of possession. Basically, Western Kentucky held it. Duquesne held it for 37 minutes. 37 minutes. That time of possession to just 22 for Hawaii. Hawaii didn't have a whole lot of drives. They basically had 8 drives of consequence in this game, and we'll get into that in just a second. I did want to kind of revisit special teams before we get to the offense, Hunter, and that had been something that I think folks were critical of the last couple of years. Just a lack of emphasis. What we're seeing, Thomas Sheffield, he's a guy that it won't be for lack of effort with and his special teams unit. And I think we're seeing it pay dividends. Like just some of the meat and potatoes stuff, like Matt Shipley has I thought the last 2 games done a really nice job punting the football. He is still Mr. Reliable in the place kicking duties. Kyler Halverson continues to pin teams deep in the kickoff game. And now in the return game, we're seeing some of those sparks. We're seeing some of those flashes. Jalen Purdue, who we saw last year, I think that was one of the nice moves that the last coaching staff made at the end of last season, was put him in as a kick returner, because we saw the explosiveness he's doing again this year. And we are seeing some of that. So I just wanted to kind of revisit special teams, because we are seeing them start to factor into the games. Look, the two, and then the block punt as well, right? Obviously. The 2 touchdowns that the offense scored were because of the special teams setting up 30-yard fields, 14-yard fields. Those are the only 2 times they scored. And so a huge tip of the cap to Coach Sheffield's unit. Oh,
yeah, totally. And this team reminds me a lot of that 2015 to 2016 last year of Norm Chow, first year of Nick Rolovich, where we saw some pretty down years for our offense. And we were very reliant on Scott Harding's ability to cause turnovers for us in the punting game. Really kind of spooky in the way that they ran that rugby style to literally change possession for us. I'd never seen it done from a football perspective before. And I'm not saying we need to start to do that now with Shipley, but when you see how the success of this special teams is then almost directly affecting the offense, because our offense needs help right now, you start to wonder, okay, how can we put ourselves in these situations more often to be successful? Because this special teams unit is solid across the board. It just is. So, it's along with our defense, Jordan, special teams is another highlight for us right now.
Yeah, and look, and those are some real positives, right? And they'll face another winnable test, but not an easy one against New Mexico State. In fact, the betting underdog in Las Cruces, which is kind of crazy to think about. But we'll talk about that coming up in the second half. All right, so the offense, and that's kind of the elephant in the room right now, right? And this offense, Coach Ian Shoemaker, they just have not been able to get in any sort of rhythm, any sort of flow so far through 4 games, and I think it has gotten to the point where a lot of the questions being asked, there aren't a whole lot of answers, and what will come of it will be interesting to see. All right, we'll talk a little bit about the week that was, and then we'll get into some of the comments that Coach Timmy Chang and some of the offensive guys had following yesterday's practice. That would have been Tuesday's practice. Joey Ellen got the start again, basically played 3 quarters, went 13 of 20 for 86 yards, no touchdowns, the 1 interception in the third quarter. Braden Shager came in, played the last few series, threw 1 pass. He came in and just handed the ball off. 1 for 1, 7 yards. That was his night. And some handoffs. The running backs continue to be the strength. The running backs in this offensive line, right? Dedrick Parson, 11 rushes, 58 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5.3 yards per carry. Najee Bryant-Lule, 10 runs, 57 yards, 5.7 yards per carry, right? He had a catch and for no yards, basically, in that ball game as well. We didn't see much of Tylen Hines. We didn't see much of Jordan Johnson in this ball game. It was a grinded out offensive game for both of those 2 running backs. Not huge yardage production totals, but especially in the red zone, those 2 guys were kind of money. Dior Scott, I thought, had one of his better games. 7 receptions, 53 yards. Jonah Pinoke, 4 catches, 22 yards. All of that coming in the first half. James Phillips, 1 reception for 20 yards, by far the longest reception of the ball game. Jalen Baltall had 1 catch for -2 yards. There weren't a whole lot of balls being caught, right, basically. And for Scott and Pinoke, 7.6 yards per catch, 5.5 yards per catch. That is not very big. It's not very productive, if you will. And so this is an offense that has just been stuck in neutral, for lack of a better term. They haven't been able to get it into gear. They haven't been able to push the ball downfield. They haven't been able to get explosive plays in the run game. For as good as Parson and Bryant-Lille have been, it is often grinding things out, right? And they've had some big runs. Don't get me wrong. They both average over 5 yards per carry in this ball game. But outside of the Parson 31-yard touchdown against Vandy in the opener, outside of the 40-plus yard touchdown run by Tylen Hines against Michigan, you don't remember a whole lot of plays where the chunk plays, right? There haven't been a whole lot of that in this offense. I think is one thing that has definitely been missing, which which then sort of bottles everything up. They're playing in a tunnel. Like they haven't been able to expand things. They haven't been able to stretch the field, expand the defense, allow for things underneath. Like it's just been, short passing game, between the tackles running, which has been productive. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But I think it could be so much more, right? If you're able to then make teams defend the entire width of the field, make teams defend down the field vertically, boy, it would be nice. But it hasn't been to this point. What are your thoughts, Hunter, on sort of where this offense has been so far?
It sometimes feels like we are just biding our time this season to wait and see what'll happen next year. It just feels like we're asleep from an offensive standpoint. Those of us that have played football, have watched a ton of football, you can't help but dream of alternative things to see on the field. One thing in particular, Duquesne wasn't very big. So if you're not establishing it on the ground, if you have bigger guys at the wide receiver or tight end position, which we definitely have, you can easily put them on the outside to physically beat the other team, where I'm talking back shoulder balls. We mentioned it on the sideline, Jordan, a lot of hitches. There's ways to get the ball down the field that I haven't seen from us just yet. Whether or not we're categorized as an offense or not, that's the big thing from Coach Shoemaker this year, was we're going to be unapologetically without a label. Well, whatever not label you put on it, we got to score a point. That label has to get put on our offense. So I think at this point of the year, we need to, we can't be afraid to try anything, because so far it doesn't seem like we've tried anything. So let's try some things to grease the wheels a little bit and try to get this thing moving forward. So that's kind of where I'm at, Jordan.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like there has to be a willingness to adapt, a willingness to change course a little bit, maybe not revamping everything. Obviously that's kind of impossible mid-season, but to try some different things, right? Throw in some wrinkles, because it doesn't appear at this point like there is light at the end of the tunnel with the current setup, pairing that with the current set of players, right? As we pointed out earlier, like you're down your top two wideouts, arguably in Zion Bowens and now Jonah Panoke for the foreseeable future. So look, you gotta adjust. You gotta kind of make do, right? What, you still no passing touchdowns on the season, right? They're one of only 3 FBF schools. Interesting enough, Florida and South Florida are the other two places you think that you'd be able to kind of throw it all over the place. On the season, Joey Yellen, 40 of 87. That's good for 46% completion percentage, which is not very good. 324 yards, 2 interceptions. Braden Shager, 41 of 69, 59% completion percentage, which is respectable. But in this day and age, right? I mean, you got to be completing like over 60% of your balls in most of these modern offenses. 398 yards, 4 interceptions. The thing, it's just kind of interesting to me because you look at Yellen's pedigree, you look at what he did. I went back and watched some of those highlights from the USC Arizona State game, right, in 2019. It's like, man, he looks like a different guy, right? So he's capable of it. Shager, we've seen. I think he's the best thrower of the football, of the guys we've seen so far this season, right? That have been out there, and so there's just something not clicking. I think that Yellen has done an admirable job, kind of taking this and stepping in, especially with some of the Shager injuries. You hear the coaching staff, you hear his teammates sort of rave about his demeanor, his command out there, and how good a dude he is. But it's just the offense just hasn't clicked, right? So it's nothing against Joey Yellen. It's nothing against Braden Shager, even when he's been out there. It's just there needs to be something, right? Something needs to be shaken up a little bit because, I went back and looked at the drive chart for this game. We mentioned Hawaii had 9 total drives, 8 of consequence. Their final drive was following the Houseman interception that sealed it. It just ran out the clock. which is eight possessions in a 2022 college football game, a 60-minute game. That's tiny. Like that's not a lot at all. I was kind of shocked, and I was like, yeah, they didn't have the ball a whole lot, especially in the second half. Like, you're talking about, 10 possessions minimum in a ball game, usually, but that's what happens when you're not scoring points. 5 of those 8 possessions, nothing. Like nothing.
Yeah.
3 of them resulted in scores, 2 touchdowns and a field goal, but 5 of the 8, nothing. They went, this is the drive chart. Start the game 3 and out. Next drive, following the Jalen Purdue long kickoff return, 6 plays, 35 yards, touchdown. Look, not their fault. They got the short field. So obviously you're not going to rack up a lot of stats, but they got a touchdown. Kudos to them there. Took advantage. Next drive, 3 and out punt. Final drive of the first half, 3 plays, 14 yards, touchdown, right? The block punt. Took that in. Again, not going to rack up a lot of stats, but they were able to punch it in. Got it in there. Dedrick Parson following a penalty, I think, that backed them up from the doorstep a little further out. Parson able to take it in from 14 yards out. All right, so you score on 2 of your 4 first half possessions in the first half. You take advantage of some short fields. All right, I think that's fairly positive to view. The 2 3 and outs, there's been too many 3 and outs with this team. There aren't a whole lot of drives that go 6 plays, 7 plays. You get 30, 35 yards. You still punt it away, but at least you flip the field position. There are a whole lot of 3 and outs. Second half drive chart. Again, just basically 3 drives of consequence. Long opening drive to start the third quarter by Duquesne. Yeah. Right, defense comes up with an interception. That was a Houseman interception. Hawaii, very next play, throws a pick right back. Right, it's like, oh boy. All right, pick right back. That was a 1-play drive. Nothing doing. Next drive, 5 plays, 1 first down, picked up 11 yards, and then they backed up 11 yards with a loss of 2 and then a sack of 9 yards. So it ended up netting 0 yards. They got a first down. They got 5 plays to put together on that drive. So it technically wasn't a 3 and out, but they didn't gain a single yard in field position, had to punt it away. Then the next drive, 10 plays. All right, okay, here we go. A little 10-play drive, went 33 yards, got a field goal. 3.3 yards per play. Like, that's rough, man. Like, good. That's something positive, right? You like to see those. Hey, maybe it wasn't a drive that went 60 yards. Maybe it wasn't a drive that went 70 yards, but hey, 30, 35 yards, you're able to end it with a kick. You end it with a punt that flips field position, or maybe you get a field goal with the reliable Matt Shipley. They got that there. But man, 3.3 yards a play, that's a grind. That's a grind. That is tough. That wears on you a little bit, right? And so that's the game. Like, those are the 8 possessions of consequence for Hawaii in that game. And look, we wouldn't be telling this team and this coaching staff anything they didn't already know, right? They go over this stuff. But that's just not good enough, right? No. Like, that's not good enough. And even mixing in, like, look, they need to score more. Finding a passing touchdown, I think, would be the next monkey off of their back, if you will, a little weight off of their shoulders. But there's so many 3 and outs, they're just so many possessions where there's no momentum built. Then they go sit down for a while, and it's like, all right, go back out there. Right. And you basically haven't done anything for like a half a quarter or a full quarter in some of these cases, where it's like, you're just not on the field very often. It's hard to build anything when you're not getting reps. Like, they didn't run a lot of plays. There weren't a whole lot of plays run. I don't even think they ran 75 plays in this game. So it begs for some adjustments. It begs for shaking things up a little bit. It begs for a rethinking of things. But what are you I saw your facial expressions, Hunter, as we went through the drive chart there. Any comments?
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to tell me, if I'm a coach at Duquesne and we could keep Hawaii to less than 2 drives a quarter, that is masterful possession and clock management on your part. A bigger school, bigger team, bigger players, potentially more talented, and you're able to hold the football from them that much amount of times. I mean, that puts your team in the most ideal situation to win a football game. So that, to me, is pretty impressive on their part, and also pretty impressive how unproductive our offense was. I mean, it felt like it when we were there, man. Our offense is bland. You and I joked around saying it's as vanilla gets, without much spice. So
Yeah, we got to sprinkle in some seasoning, man. Get some sprinkles on there, a little spice, a little something. My math is terrible because I literally read you all of the plays that they ran, and I was like, I don't think they got to 75. The total was 46. They ran 46 offensive plays in this game.
That is,
yeah. So it's just, and again, there are a lot of things that are hindrances, right? We talked about the exodus of players. We talked about the lack of run into this season. We talk about the injuries, especially at the perimeter with the wide receivers. And so, look, but at this point, I mean, you hear it from the coaches, you hear it from inside the locker room as well. Like they're not making those excuses. They're not clinging on to those excuses. And so at some point, right, you got to start getting the job done. And look, they got to win. That's the positive. But you got to start producing. They know that as well as anybody. And so it was kind of interesting to see Coach Chang address the media, right, as he usually does, the usual media scrum after Tuesday's practices. And he said that they are changing a little bit of the philosophy. I'm just reading you some of the quotes here. Quote, "We're going to start pushing the ball in different areas of the field, and simplifying. And so hopefully that can go into this week's game plan and be successful." And then, of course, that led to a fair amount of follow-up questions from the media there. Timmy elaborated and said, quote, "Trying to spread them out a little bit more. Some of the things we might be accustomed to here in Hawaii without giving away everything, definitely trying to throw the ball." And so that, of course, perked up a lot of people, piqued some people's interests. Nowhere at any point did he utter the words run and shoot. Not one time. Not one time he said, we're going to stretch the field. We're going to start pushing the ball into different areas of the field. We're going to be doing some things that Hawaii fans are accustomed to here in Hawaii, right? A lot of allusions to offenses of yesteryear. But it's just so funny because people latch on to that, right? Social media, talk radio. That obviously leads people to think run and shoot. And I tell you what, man, and you know this, Hunter, because I know you talk to a lot of people at your job, you see people around, right? It's like if you utter the words run and shoot, like it like people will, it's almost as if people who can't even hear you that are clear across town, like people, shopping at Long's, or, the brother man working like construction, or somebody like doing some yard work or picking up their kid from school, they'll like pause and be like, did somebody say run and shoot? What did I hear? And it like elicits this visceral response from people. And it's like, oh, then you get them going, right? It's like they'll tell you everything you need to know about how the run and shoot is the greatest offense that's ever existed, and it works. You got that's what we got to be running at the University of Hawaii. And like, look, I'm not going to disagree with any of that, but it's just I just find it kind of amusing that it just elicits this response from people. And so I think people took this and got really excited by what Coach Chang was saying. I'd love to see them try some stuff. I don't know if it's going to work, right? Again, we talk about personnel wise. It's tough. It's tough for this group, but yeah, I mean, I think it was encouraging to hear Coach Chang say, like, look, we're going to try something a little different, right? Whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to label it, whatever it looks like. That was encouraging.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you, man. I don't know if this is fact, but I feel like run and shoot must have been the rallying cry for Kamehameha when he conquered the islands. I mean, it's built into the Aina out here. The minute you
it gets people going, man. It gets people going.
You whisper it can be heard for miles. Run and shoot.
Like echoes. It echoes.
Yeah, that's right. Hats off to Coach Timmy for not saying run and shoot while saying run and shoot. That's a pretty good job on his part right there of not giving everything away with also giving everything away. Bless his heart. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it earlier, Jordan. We're at the point of this year and with this team, we got to try something. So, similar whenever Rolo took over, we could not fully commit to run and shoot schemes because it takes so much teaching. It takes so much of a mind shift across the board from quarterback play to running backs to how you block for it, how you how wide receivers change the routes on the go. So they can't quite make that shift just right off the bat. But we can incorporate some of the brilliant route schemes that the run and shoot does possess, because it allows for undersized, underskilled teams to be successful. So I don't think it's a mystery that we would fall under one of those undersized, underskilled teams right now with everything that's gone down. So I think we're looking for any solution that could help us win football games at this point.
Yeah, look, I mean, the numbers don't lie, right? Hawaii 120th out of 131 FBS teams in scoring at 15.2 points per game, 120th in total offense, 105th in passing offense, 124th in passing yards per completion, right? Yards per completion, which is usually a good measure, yards per attempt as well. But even yards per completion, 8.91 yards per. I do got to give a shout out. It's kind of funny because, as you point out, Coach Timmy, right? Kind of talking around it a little bit, but alluding to it. I loved it. I enjoy that. I like a little tongue in cheek. But our guy Tanner Hayworth of ESPN Honolulu tweeted out what I thought was just a really funny kind of snarky tweet. To the comments that Coach Chang said, that some of the things where we might be a little more accustomed to here in Hawaii in terms of the offense. And he tweeted out, is Paul Johnson showing up in Las Cruces this weekend? Of course, alluding to Hawaii's past existence as a spread option team.
Yeah.
And I thought that was great. And I would just love it if that was actually true, right? It's like, oh yeah, you guys thought we were going to run the run and shoot. In fact, we're going to run the double slot option. We're gonna bring back the days of Michael Carter and Darryl Gabriel. We're still gonna throw it, right? Those guys can throw it, man. We're gonna bring back the Kelly Greens. We're gonna the tearaway mesh jerseys, and that's what Coach Timmy Chang was talking about. I'd love it if that was the case, and I thought that was kind of very witty, and very very clever of our guy Tanner. So I did want to give a shout out. I thought that was great. I got to keep the people on their toes a little bit, keep them guessing. There are these very distinct eras of Hawaii football,
because he's not wrong. That's what we were known for.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? And this is a point that has been made by many over the years. Hawaii's best years, right? The Holiday Bowl, the Tommy Wagner era, the June Jones era. Very, very different offenses, right? You're talking about option, run and shoot, but they are. Gimmick's not the right word. Hawaii has existed or has performed the best in its existence when running different offenses, right? Running non-traditional offenses. That has been the MO for the successful years of Hawaii football. So, I'm not saying it can't work running something else, but if you just look at history, right, that's sort of always been the case. One last quotable as we head out here on what has turned into quite the long first half. Dior Scott also made available to the media, the veteran. I think he has emerged as one of the leaders of this team and has been one of the more reliable pass catchers. He said, quote, "This is the reason I came to Hawaii, to really throw the ball down the field, see exciting plays." For Coach Timmy Chang to finally say, hey, let's throw the ball down the field vertical. This excites us, but we know we have a big responsibility now. We got to be ready for the challenge ahead. So I think that's, obviously that had to have been something, communicated going into the week, during install, during meetings, during practice. So it sounds like, and that's the other thing too. A little change. You got to be able to keep the guys interested. You got to get them a little excited, right? And looking to push the ball downfield. So we'll see how that all plays out. All right, we'll take a quick halftime break here. Come back, second half, we'll look at New Mexico State ahead on the weekend. Back with more Hawaii football now after this.
This is Hawaii Football Now from ESPN Honolulu.
All right, second halftime, Jordan Hunter back with you. A little abbreviated second half. We went a little long. Offensive philosophical discussion. You can get Hunter and I talking about that for days. New Mexico State on the weekend. The Aggies 0-4 on the season. Remember last year they were 2-10 in 2021. Hawaii is 10-0 all time against New Mexico State, including 2 wins in 2 meetings last season. The Aggies 2 blowout losses to Big Ten opponents, Minnesota, and last week against Wisconsin, 66-7 loss. in Madison against the Badgers, and then 2 close losses, in fact, to Group of 5 opponents, Nevada to start the season, and UTEP in their rivalry game, Texas El Paso, a couple of weeks ago. Both of those, I think, were less than 10-point losses. The UTEP loss was a single-score game. All that being said, Aggies 0-4, a couple of rough outings. Hawaii 1-3, rough outing against a Big Ten opponent of their own, SEC opponent of their own. Hawaii currently 4.5-point underdogs. 4.5-point underdogs. They opened +2. That has climbed to now 4.5. I don't know what it'll be like. The line seems to have kind of steadied out here after opening +2 on Sunday. That it should probably be around there. I would imagine 4, 4.5, 5 by the time this thing kicks off on Saturday. Just another sobering reminder of sort of what the state of the program's when you're on the road at 0-4 New Mexico State, a team you have never lost to in your program's history, former WAC rival New Mexico State in their final year of independence before they head back off to conference affiliation. Sunbelt, I believe it is. It is Hawaii who is the underdog in this ball game, and by no stretch, I've seen them play a few times in the Nevada game, a little bit of the UTEP, and then Wisconsin, which obviously was not necessarily an accurate look. They're better than they were last year, I think. Just watching them on tape. I think they're an improved team. They've tweaked their offensive philosophy a little bit. I don't know if they're necessarily more talented, but I think they've got a better idea of how they want to go about things. Same coaching staff, veteran coaching staff there. But by no stretch of the imagination is this going to be an easy game for the University of Hawaii. It is a worthy opponent, and one that Hawaii is not favored to win in, but one that winnable game, no doubt.
Do they still have that big quarterback, Jordan?
No, different quarterback. So interestingly enough, they got 2 quarterbacks. Sound familiar? They got Gavin Frakes, who is more the passer. Okay passing numbers. And then they got Diego Pavia, who, when I've watched, I think that is kind of what looks to be their more promising look. He's more of a runner. It's more spread option stuff. Think Auburn, think West Virginia back in the day, right? You're moving guys around, you're running buck sweep, you're running some of these option looks out of it. I think he's pretty dangerous. Nevada's not that good this year. I think they'll be one of the opponents on Hawaii's schedule that, might offer an opportunity to play well against. But still, it's a Mountain West opponent, and they played them very tough. And a couple of untimely turnovers, I think, was the big difference against the Wolfpack for New Mexico State. So yeah, they shuffle these 2 guys in there, mixed results, little different looks for Hawaii, obviously, right? It's basically been the same offense no matter who they've thrown in there, but for New Mexico State, different packages. So yeah, it'll be kind of interesting to see how this defense prepares for 2 quarterbacks that offer you 2 different looks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think our defense is going to be leaned on heavily again to try to get some turnovers. And I'm almost wanting to keep my hope and expectations at bay, Jordan, with regards to our offense. As much as those comments from Timmy Chang gets me excited, I'm also at this point of like, all right, show us. We keep talking like we're going to do something. Now's the time, because we don't get too many other, I wouldn't say golden opportunities, good opportunities like this game to kind of stretch our legs before conference play starts in just a couple of weeks' time. So this is time is definitely of the essence here to try to get something established on offense.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And this is a New Mexico State team that presents a very stiff test. Lazarus Williams, one of their key pass rushers, he's got 2 sacks in 4 games, a name to keep your eye on if you watch this one. It will be on Flow Sports. For those that watched the game on Flow Sports last year, you know how to get there. Google it. You need a subscription. It's like $20 for a monthly subscription, or you can do the year thing, right? They've got a decent catalog of games. They've got partnered with some lower division conferences. They have New Mexico State. They have UMass. They're the TV broadcast partner for both of those independent schools. They've got a bunch of high school sports across the country. But, just a friendly reminder, you're going to have to go drop $20 to go watch this one and just cancel it after the game so you don't get the recurring charge there. But of course, you can always catch it on ESPN Honolulu Radio with the Veneri brothers on the call there. That one you don't have to pay a subscription fee for if you want to go check that one out. So yeah, big trip to Las Cruces, second road trip of the year. They at least got the routine down, right? This isn't their first road trip of the year, but it is a big one. Look, if they can come back from this into the bye week prior to conference play at 2-3, all things considered, I think that's all right. I think that's a positive step in the right direction. But 1-4 lost to New Mexico State for the first time in your program history. Little different tune if that is the case. All right. So one other topic that we kind of wanted to save for next week anyway, because I think we're learning a little bit more about this. This news kind of just broke yesterday. There appears to be a shakeup with NASID, the new Aloha Stadium Entertainment District. Governor Ige appears to be shifting course. I'm not really sure if that is more just kind of semantics based on it transitioning from one state department to another, or if this is a philosophical change and how this all works out. But I can tell you one thing, it most likely delays everything. So just we'll put that on the back burner. We'll talk about that next week. But just wanted to put that on people's radar that there may be further developments when it comes to the new Aloha Stadium. I'm sure you're shocked, Hunter.
Are you saying that before Governor Ige gets voted out, he decided to slow the new Aloha Stadium?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not too sure. He's terming out, right? He couldn't run again. I don't know. This may be more, hey, look, it had to be done because of the transfer from the Stadium Authority to DBET, but I don't know. I don't know. That's why I didn't want to get too into it this week, because I think that we need to get a little more information. I got to read up on this thing before we get into it.
Some jokes just write themselves, man.
Yeah, they really do. They really do. Can't wait to catch the rail to the new Aloha Stadium and whenever that happens. Quick look at the comments. Big thanks to everybody once again. Yeah. Our guy Scott, who was appreciative of the Mark Veneri interview. He was saying, hey, some of the shakeups, maybe even give some of the other quarterbacks, right? Jake Farrell, Armani Eden a shot in this one. Al from VA, of course, dropping us a few different comments. Thought he had a really good point talking about, hey, if you're going back to the run and shoot, right, that makes sense for a lot of reasons, including the fact that, hey, a lot of schools in Hawaii, in the area run similar offenses, right? Because of the influence of the June Jones era. A lot of high schools started running that. And so look at the natural recruiting base, right? That fits the system, undersized guys that we saw throughout the years, really, that fitted the Jonah Pinokes, the Kuali Nishi guys, just of the recent crop, right? Here, Great Ihu even, right, kind of ran that at Pac-5 now, getting some run for the University of Hawaii at wide receiver. Amin, not too sure. I think a first-time commenter. Appreciate you. Had little insight on perhaps a JUCO QB from the LA area that Hawaii could have their eyes on. Kind of interesting to see. You can check that on the YouTube comments as well. But as we wrap things up with the overtime, did want to give a shout out, a little Bows in the Pros segment. Jelani Tavai sack last weekend for the Patriots. Still getting the run out there, right, man? He's reunited with Matt Patricia. They're back in New England after their time in Detroit together. And then J.R. Hensley, after a standout season, all-league season in the indoor football league, not to be confused with the defunct Arena Football League or the other indoor football arena league thing. I don't know. There have been a whole bunch of different.
There's a few of them.
But anyway, he's going to the CFL. The good thing about the CFL, it's been around for like over 100 years. And so you're not going to get confused as to which league that is. The BC Lions, of course, strong tradition of Hawaii players there in Vancouver. The likes of Solomon Elamimian and his time there. So shout out to JR. Awesome for him as he's going there. Any final thoughts, Hunter, as we wrap this thing up?
Oh, yeah. Hats off to both those guys continuing to put the work in, especially JR getting a chance to move up. It's not just going from, an NFL opportunity and then the lower level footballs. Like, it shows that he played well enough in indoor football league to get called up again and is on the upward trajectory of his career. So super stoked for my teammate, my good friend, Hensley. You're doing good stuff, man. We got to have you on the show at some point. So other than that, Jordan, my other overtime segment, has everything to do with Aaron Rodgers continuing to kick our butt in Chicago. I'm not a gambling man. I am not someone who likes to bet my own money. However, I'm putting money on the Packers from now until the cows come home that they're going to beat the Bears every single time. It's so frustrating.
Yeah, we asked for some consideration last week when we said, look, give us this, right, for the Bears after the win over the Niners, because it's like, it's probably not going to last very long. And yeah, Rodgers, as he usually does, just taking our hearts. One little gripe, there was a touchdown. There's a touchdown on the goal line. I don't understand how we haven't figured this thing out yet.
If tennis has their entire thing out on
what are we doing? There's goal line technology in soccer. Like, it's not that hard. It's not that hard, guys. He scored.
An invisible barrier, and
scored.
Every inch of football is covered with some sort of, I don't know, chip coating that the minute it passes, it's a touchdown. I don't understand.
Yeah, look, it wouldn't have changed the outcome of the game, but maybe the Bears covered. So, some people cared. That's all I know. All right, that'll do it for us. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the New Mexico State game. We'll be back to wrap it up next week on a bye week. So a chance for everybody to kind of recalibrate after the trip to Las Cruces and get ready for the stretch run and the Mountain West Conference season that is ahead. Basically a third of the way through the year now. 4 games in, Hawaii 1-3 following win number 1 of the season, win number 1 of the Timmy Chang era, the 10-point victory over Duquesne. Big mahalo to you, my guy Hunter. Big mahalo to Jaron on the controls. Big thanks to Spectrum Mobile, Hawaii USA, Federal Credit Union, and Battery Bill as well. We'll see you next week, everybody. Aloha.
You've been listening to Hawaii Football Now with Jordan Helle and Hunter Hughes, all from ESPN Honolulu.